Pope Francis has recently dedicated the year we're living in, the liturgical year we're living in, to St. Joseph with his apostolic letter with a father's heart. Today's gospel passage briefly highlights Joseph. We heard Mary was betrothed to a man named Joseph of the house of David. We learn from Luke's gospel that Joseph and Mary were very poor. When they came to present Jesus in the temple, they were required to offer something. Ideally, if they had enough money, a lamb. But if they were poor, according to Levitical law, they could offer 2 birds instead, 2 turtle doves or pigeons, and that is what they did. Although Joseph was very poor, he nonetheless belonged to a very important family, the royal family of David, and had in some way legitimate claim to be an heir to the throne of David. For 500 years, the Jewish people lacked a legitimate king, a Judean king, even though in the first reading that we have from the second book of Samuel, God promises to King David that your kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom. How is God going to fulfill this promise when, for 500 years, the Jewish people had lacked a Judean king? Their last Judean king, his name was King Zedekiah. And about 500 years before the birth of Jesus, King Zedekiah witnessed his city, Jerusalem, destroyed by the Babylonians. And then the Babylonians took Zedekiah's 2 sons, killed them before him, and then gouged out Zedekiah's eyes. Afterwards, they took Zedekiah, along with many other people in Jerusalem, into Babylon in exile. 50 years or so after that, the Persians defeat the Babylonians and allow the Jewish people to return back home. But still, the Jewish people are not permitted to have a king, and they don't for all the way up until the time of Jesus' birth. Some of the Jewish people returning home, they settled in northern Israel, and according to some archaeological evidence, these returnees named their titles of their towns with messianic names. For example, Nazareth. Nazareth comes from the Hebrew word netzer, which is branch. So that town literally means branch town. Why? And for hope of those people that one day Isaiah 11:1 will be fulfilled. In Isaiah 11:1 we hear that from the cut down stump of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. So the Davidic king has been cut down. The Davidic dynasty has been cut down by the Babylonians. But they hope that someday, according to Isaiah, a shoot will spring forth from Jesse's stump. And that shoot will become a Jesse's tree, meaning another Davidic king. So they named their town Nazareth, in the branch town, in hope that someday they will be given by God a just, righteous Judean king. A town not far away from there was called Kokoba, which means in Hebrew star town. And these returnees from Babylonian exile named their town Star Town because they were hoping that someday Numbers 24:17 will be fulfilled. And in Numbers 24:17 we hear a prophecy that a star shall come forth out of Jacob. Jesus is born in Bethlehem, and Bethlehem is the same town David is from. And Jesus is that new Judean king, that everlasting king. Through Jesus, God fulfills his promise that he had made to King David, that the Davidic kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom. But God fulfills his promise in a very surprising way, because Jesus is a king unlike any others. His crown he wears is a crown of thorns, and he rules from the cross. He's born in a manger where animals eat out of. This king is unlike any other king because this king rules by truth and rules by love. He does not rule by force. He does not force our wills. He doesn't physically force us. He tries to persuade us, woos us to be members of his kingdom. Today, as we prepare ourselves for Christmas Day, may we ask God for greater faith in our Lord Jesus Christ as our true King, who is a King unlike any other king in world history. For our King loved us so much that he came down, leaped from heaven to be born as a baby, and died on the cross as a witness to true love, love that is so true that it lasts beyond death and overcomes death. God bless.